The galaxy had always considered humans to be weak. For 300 years since first contact, every alien species looked at Earth and saw nothing but soft creatures living on a small blue world. The Varkan Empire laughed at human technology. The Krell Dominion called them primitive apes. The ancient Zethari Collective simply ignored them as insects beneath their notice. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the human cargo ship Wanderer and watched the Varkan patrol vessel approaching. Her crew of 12 looked nervous. They had every reason to be afraid. Varkan ships were 3 times larger than anything humanity could build. At least, that was what the galaxy believed. The communication screen flickered to life. A Varkan commander appeared. His gray skin and 4 yellow eyes made him look like a nightmare brought to life. His teeth were sharp like daggers when he smiled. "Human vessel," the Varkan said with clear disgust in his voice. "You are carrying medical supplies to the Kalan refugee colony. These supplies now belong to the Varkan Empire. Prepare to be boarded." Alina kept her face calm. Inside, her heart was racing. The Kalan were a peaceful species who had been destroyed by the Varkan invasion. Millions of survivors were dying in camps across the frontier. The medicine on her ship could save thousands of children. Commander Alina said carefully, "These supplies are protected under the Galactic Humanitarian Treaty. You cannot legally take them." The Varkan laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Treaties are for species who matter. Human, your kind has no power, no weapons, no allies. If you exist because we allow it, now surrender, or we will destroy your ship and take what we want from the wreckage." Alina looked at her first officer, Marcus Chen. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had seen too many of these encounters in his 30 years of service. Every time, humans had no choice but to obey. Every time, they had to bow their heads and accept humiliation. But today was different. Today, Marcus knew something that the Varkan commander did not know. "Captain," Marcus said quietly, "should I send the signal?" Alina took a deep breath. For 200 years, humanity had been planning this moment. Every insult they had suffered, every attack they had endured, every treaty violation they had witnessed had led to this day. The galaxy thought humans were weak because humans wanted them to think that. "Send it," Elena said. Marcus pressed a single button on his console. The signal traveled faster than light, crossing half the galaxy in an instant. It reached a location that no alien species knew existed. It reached a place hidden in the darkness between stars. And something woke up. The Varkan commander was still laughing when his census officer screamed. The sound was high and filled with pure terror. The commander turned to look at his displays and felt his blood turn to ice. Something was emerging from hyperspace directly behind his patrol vessel. Something massive. Something impossible. The ship that appeared was larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was 5 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide. Its hull was black like the void between stars. Weapons covered every surface. Energy readings were beyond anything Varkan sensors could measure. That ship should not exist. According to every intelligence report, humans could barely build vessels 100 meters long. This was the UNSS Prometheus, and it had come to change the universe. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral James Walker watched the Varkan vessel through cold blue eyes. He was 63 years old. His hair was white. His face was lined with scars from battles the galaxy never knew about. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. "Open a channel to the Varkan ship," he ordered. The communication officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." James spoke clearly, knowing his words would echo across the stars. "Varkan vessel. This is Admiral James Walker of the United Nations spaceship Prometheus. You have threatened a humanitarian convoy. You have violated treaties that your empire signed. You have insulted humanity for the last time." The Varkan commander appeared on screen. His arrogance was gone. His 4 eyes were wide with fear. His voice shook when he tried to speak. That ship is impossible. Humans cannot build such things. You are primitives. You are nothing." James smiled. It was not a kind smile. "For 300 years, we let you believe that. We hid in our solar system. We pretended to be weak. We built ships in secret places where no scanner could reach. We developed weapons that your scientists cannot understand. And we waited." The Varkan commander was breathing fast now. Waited for what? "For someone to push too far," James said. "For someone to threaten innocent lives in front of our eyes. Today, you became that someone." Elena watched from the Wanderer as the Prometheus powered its weapons. Energy gathered along the Dreadnought's hull like lightning made solid. The Varkan patrol vessel suddenly looked very small and very fragile. "You have 30 seconds to leave this sector," James continued. "After that, I will demonstrate what humanity has been building in the darkness. I suggest you run." The Varkan commander did not need to be told twice. His ship turned and fled at maximum speed. Within moments it vanished into hyperspace, running back to Varkan territory with a warning that would shake the Empire to its foundations. On the Wanderer, Elena's crew was cheering. Tears ran down her face as she watched the massive Dreadnought holding position near her tiny cargo ship. For her entire life she had watched aliens humiliate her species. She had accepted insults because there was no other choice. She had bowed her head because standing tall meant death. But now everything was different. "Captain Vasquez," James's voice came through the communication system. "Please continue your mission. The Prometheus will escort you to the Kalan colony. No one will threaten you again." Alina nodded, unable to find words. She watched as the impossible ship moved to guard position near her vessel, where the medical supplies would reach the refugees, the children would live, and somewhere across the galaxy. In throne rooms and council chambers and military command centers, alien leaders were receiving emergency messages, reports of a human dreadnought that could not exist, stories of technology that should be impossible, warnings that everything they believed about humanity was wrong. The stars had been full of noise for millions of years. Species argued and fought and made threats. Everyone believed they understood the balance of power. Everyone thought they knew who was strong and who was weak. But after that day, the stars went quiet because nobody knew what to say. Humanity had been hiding something, and the galaxy was about to discover just how deep that secret went. The Galactic Council met in emergency session for the first time in 800 years. The great chamber on the neutral world of Thessa Prime was built to hold representatives from 12,000 species. Today, every seat was filled. Every voice was raised in argument. High Chancellor Morvex of the Zetheric Collective slammed his ancient fist against his speaking platform. He was old, even by his species standards. Blue energy crackled beneath his translucent skin. He had seen empires rise and fall across 1,000 years. "Silence," he commanded. The chamber obeyed. "We have all seen the recordings. We have all studied the sensor data. That humans have constructed a warship that defies our understanding. The question before us is simple. What do we do about it?" Ambassador Krell of the Varkan Empire stood. His gray skin was pale with barely controlled rage. "We destroy them. We gather our combined fleets and burn their pathetic world to ash. They have tricked us. They have lied to us. This insult cannot stand." Voices rose in agreement from the warrior species. The Varkan, the Threx, the Moloch hegemony. They commanded billions of soldiers and millions of warships. They had conquered half the galaxy through blood and fire. But other voices spoke against them. Ambassador Celine of the Aldori Republics rose slowly. She was small by galactic standards, with silver fur and gentle golden eyes. Her species had survived for 10,000 years through wisdom rather than violence. "Perhaps we should ask ourselves a different question," she said softly. "The humans have had this weapon for an unknown period of time. They could have used it for conquest. They could have taken revenge for 3 centuries of abuse. Instead, they revealed it to protect refugees. Medicine for dying children. Is this the action of an enemy?" The Varkan ambassador snarled. "They made fools of us." Their captain stood on her bridge and smiled while that monster ship appeared. "They planned this humiliation. Your patrol vessel was threatening to steal humanitarian supplies," Celine replied calmly. "Perhaps some humiliation was earned." The chamber erupted in chaos again. Morvex watched with ancient eyes as the galaxy argued about humanity's fate. He remembered 300 years ago when human explorers first made contact. They had seemed so harmless then, so friendly and eager to join the galactic community. The established powers had treated them badly from the beginning. Human colonies were raided. Human traders were cheated. Human diplomats were ignored. Everyone assumed that humans would simply accept their place at the bottom of the galactic hierarchy. Morvex had always suspected there was something strange about human submission. Their species had evolved on a deadly world filled with predators and disasters. Their history was written in blood and survival against impossible odds. They should have fought back. They should have resisted. Instead, they had smiled and apologized and retreated to their solar system. They had built only small ships and weak weapons. They had focused on trade and science and medicine. Now Morvex understood. It had all been a mask. Every humble word, every surrendered cargo, every accepted insult was part of a plan that spanned centuries. The humans had studied the galaxy. They had learned every species technology. They had identified every weakness in every fleet, and they had built something to exploit those weaknesses. General Thrak of the Moloch hegemony demanded the floor. He was massive, standing 3 meters tall with muscles like twisted steel cables. His species lived for war. "I have analyzed the sensor data from the Varkan vessel," he rumbled. "The human dreadnought has armor unlike anything we possess. Its weapons operate on principles we do not understand. Energy readings suggest power generation that exceeds our largest stations." He paused, his small red eyes scanning the council. "If we attack the humans now, we will lose." The chamber fell into shocked silence. "That is impossible," the Varkan ambassador protested. "We have the largest fleet in the galaxy. We have conquered 100 species. And none of those species had weapons that could pierce your shields with a single shot," Thrak replied. "Based on my calculations, one human dreadnought could destroy an entire Varkan battle group. We do not know how many such ships they possess." Fear began to spread through the council. For thousands of years, the galactic powers had operated under one simple rule. Strength meant survival. The strong took what they wanted from the weak. Now the weak had become strong, and no one knew what they wanted. Admiral Walker received the council transmission on the bridge of the Prometheus. He had expected panic and threats and demands for war. The galaxy's response was entirely predictable. His executive officer, Commander Sarah Kim, stood beside him reviewing intelligence reports. The Varkan are mobilizing their entire fleet. The Threks are doing the same. The Moloch hegemony is placing their worlds on full military alert. James nodded slowly. Expected. They don't know how to respond to something they don't understand. Violence is their default setting. Sir, if they form a coalition against Earth, even the Prometheus cannot fight the combined forces of the galaxy. James smiled slightly. The Prometheus is not alone. Commander Sarah's eyes widened. She had served on the Dreadnought for 5 years. She knew it was humanity's greatest secret, but now she realized that even she did not know the full truth. How many ships do we have? Enough, James replied. Earth has not been idle during these 3 centuries. We built in places no one thought to look. Asteroid fields, gas giant atmospheres, the space between solar systems where sensors cannot reach. We constructed shipyards in the darkness and filled them with purpose. He turned to face her directly. The galaxy will soon learn that the Prometheus was just the beginning. Humanity has 11 more dreadnoughts. We have 200 cruisers. We have enough firepower to break any coalition that forms against us. Sarah felt her heart racing. Her whole life she had accepted human weakness as natural law. She had studied alien cultures and learned to avoid their anger. She had built her career on the assumption that humanity would always be small and vulnerable. Why did we hide so long? She asked quietly. Why did we let them abuse us when we had this power? James was silent for a long moment before answering. Because power without wisdom is just destruction. We spent 3 centuries learning everything about the galaxy. We understand their cultures, their fears, their hopes. We know which species are truly cruel and which are simply following the rules they inherited. We know who can be trusted and who cannot. He looked out at the stars through the bridge viewports. When we reveal our full strength, it will not be for revenge. It will be to build something better. A galaxy where the weak do not have to fear the strong. Where refugees receive medicine instead of contempt. Where species are judged by their character rather than their weapons. Sarah understood then. Humanity had not been weak. Humanity had been patient. And patience was a weapon that no alien species had considered. The Council will demand answers, she said. Yes, they will, and I intend to give them answers they do not expect. Prepare a diplomatic transmission. I will address the Galactic Council directly. As the message was prepared, alien fleets gathered across the galaxy. Millions of warships powered their weapons. Trillions of soldiers awaited orders. The greatest military powers in the universe prepared for war against a species they had always dismissed as insignificant. None of them understood what was coming. Humanity was about to speak, and when they did, every assumption the galaxy held would shatter like glass in a storm. Admiral James Walker's image appeared on every screen in the Galactic Council chamber. Behind him, the bridge of the Prometheus was visible. Crew members worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. The message was clear without words. This was a warship ready for battle. High Chancellor Morvex raised his ancient hand for silence. The chamber obeyed, every representative watching the human with mixed fear and curiosity. Admiral Walker Morvex said formally, "You have disrupted 3 centuries of galactic order. You have revealed weapons of unimaginable power. The Council demands an explanation for this deception." James nodded respectfully. "I understand your concern, High Chancellor. The galaxy believed humans were weak. That belief was deliberately created by my species. I am here to explain why." He paused, letting his words sink into the minds of 12,000 alien representatives. 300 years ago, when we first reached the stars, we were genuinely excited to join the galactic community. We came with open hands and open hearts. We wanted friendship and cooperation, and the exchange of knowledge. His voice hardened slightly. What we found instead was cruelty. Within the first decade, Varkan raiders attacked our colony on Titan. 8,000 human civilians died. When we appealed to this very council for justice, we were told that humans were not significant enough to warrant intervention. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Many younger representatives had never heard this history. The Threks combined enslaved 200 human miners in the Kepler system. The Moloch hegemony destroyed an entire science station because our researchers discovered resources they wanted to claim. Species after species tested our weakness and found no resistance. James stepped closer to the camera, his blue eyes cold as winter ice. We resisted, just not in the way you expected. We could have built warships immediately. We could have struck back with desperate fury. But we had studied history. We saw what happened to species that challenged the established powers before they were ready. They were crushed and forgotten. Ambassador Celine of the Eldori watched with growing fascination. She had always felt that humanity was different from other prey species. Now she understood why. So we pretended to accept our role. James continued. We bowed our heads publicly while building strength in secret. Every trade deal taught us about your economies. Every diplomatic insult revealed your political structures. Every attack against our people showed us your military tactics. We learned everything while you learned nothing about us. The Varkan ambassador rose angrily. You admit to spying on the entire galaxy. We admit to surviving, James replied. Your species has conquered 60 worlds through a military force. You have enslaved billions. You have violated every treaty you have ever signed. Perhaps you should consider why a species might need to hide their strength from you. Silence fell again. James allowed it to stretch before continuing. But I am not here to threaten war. I am not here to announce conquest or demand revenge. I am here to offer something the galaxy has never seen. He touched a control on his console. A holographic image appeared beside him. It showed a structure so large that even the Dreadnought seemed small beside it. This is Station Genesis. It is a construction facility we have built in neutral space. It is currently producing medical supplies, agricultural technology, and environmental restoration equipment. We have enough capacity to help every struggling world in the galaxy. Chancellor Morvex leaned forward. You are offering aid, after everything that was done to your species. Yes, James said simply. The galaxy has operated under one principle for too long. The strong take from the weak. This has created endless cycles of war and revenge. Species fight to become strong enough to survive, then abuse that strength once they achieve it. Nothing ever changes. He gestured toward the image of Station Genesis. Humanity proposes a different path. We have the power to punish our enemies. We choose not to use it. Instead, we will help those who have been hurt by the current system. We will offer technology to species that cannot defend themselves. We will create a coalition based on cooperation rather than domination. The Aldori ambassador rose slowly. Her golden eyes were shining with something that looked like hope. And what do you ask in return? Only that those who accept our help agree to a simple principle. Violence against civilians is forbidden. Slavery is forbidden. The strong must protect the weak rather than prey upon them. Species that join our coalition will prosper together. Species that refuse will be left alone unless they attack others. Chaos erupted in the chamber once more. Representatives shouted at each other in a dozen languages. The warrior species screamed threats. The weakest species whispered among themselves with rising excitement. Ambassador Krell of the Varkan Empire pushed through the crowd to the speaking platform. This is a trick, he screamed, that humans seek to divide us. They want to turn prey species against their rightful masters. We must unite and destroy them before this poison spreads. But already the chamber was splitting. Representatives from hundreds of oppressed species were clustering around the Aldori ambassador, speaking rapidly about this incredible offer. For the first time in living memory, someone was offering them protection without demanding submission. General Thrak of the Moloch hegemony watched with calculating eyes. His species respected strength above all else, and he had to admit that humanity had demonstrated extraordinary strength, not just in their ships and weapons, but in their patience and planning. A species that could wait 3 centuries for revenge and then choose mercy, instead, was not a species to underestimate. He approached the Varkan ambassador carefully. Perhaps we should not be hasty, he suggested quietly. The humans have surprised us once. They may have more surprises waiting. A direct attack could be costly. Krell's 4 eyes narrowed. You would submit to creatures we once considered insects. I would not throw away hegemony lives against an unknown enemy. Let others test human resolve first. We can observe and learn from their mistakes. High Chancellor Morvex called for order again and again, but the chamber would not quiet. The foundation of galactic civilization was cracking. For millions of years, power had meant domination. Violence had meant victory. Those rules were written so deep in alien cultures that no one had ever questioned them. Now a species they had dismissed as worthless was offering a completely different vision. And worst of all, that species had the strength to make its vision reality. As the council descended into chaos, Admiral Walker ended his transmission. He had planted the seed. Now he would wait for it to grow. Captain Elena Vasquez watched the council proceedings from the Wanderer. Her ship had reached the Kalan refugee colony. Medical supplies were being distributed to grateful families. Children who would have died were now receiving treatment. She stood at her viewport and looked out at the Prometheus still holding guard position nearby. The massive Dreadnought had changed everything, but somehow, watching the medicine reach those who needed it felt like the real victory. Humanity had hidden its strength for 300 years. Now that strength would be used not to conquer but to heal, not to punish but to protect. Alina smiled and returned to supervising the supply distribution. Whatever happened next in the halls of galactic power, this moment was worth celebrating. The universe was about to learn what humanity truly valued, and it was not what anyone expected. The Varkan Emperor received the council report in his throne room on the homeworld of Vorax's Prime. His name was Crassus the Mighty, and he had ruled for 600 years through absolute brutality. His predecessors had conquered 100 worlds. He had conquered 50 more. Now a species he barely remembered was threatening everything. Summon the War Council, he commanded, and contact our allies. The time for patience has ended. Within hours, the largest military coalition in galactic history began to form. The Varkan Empire contributed 800 warships. The Threx Combine added 300 more. The Kessler Syndicate, the Mordax clans, and a dozen smaller aggressive species pledged their forces. In total, over 2,000 warships gathered at the edge of human space. Admiral Walker received the intelligence report with calm. Acceptance. They are faster than I expected, he commented to Commander Kim. I thought we had at least another month before they organized a strike force. Sarah reviewed the tactical display showing enemy positions. Their combined fleet significantly outnumbers us. Even with our technological advantage, those numbers are concerning. Numbers matter less than you think, James replied. Contact Fleet Admiral Chen on the Athena. Tell her to bring the second battle group out of hiding. It is time to show the galaxy that the Prometheus has sisters. The message traveled across human-controlled space to a location hidden within a dense asteroid field. There, 11 more dreadnoughts waited in darkness. Each was identical to the Prometheus. Each carried weapons that could shatter moons. Admiral Lin Chen received her orders with fierce satisfaction. She had commanded the Athena for 15 years, waiting for the day when hiding would no longer be necessary. All ships. This is Fleet Admiral Chen. Break concealment and proceed to coordinates transmitted. We have enemies to discourage. One by one, the massive ships emerged from their hiding places. The Zeus, the Odin, the Thor, the Rama, ancient names from human mythology, given to weapons that could reshape the stars. They moved through hyperspace toward the gathering storm. The coalition fleet had positioned itself near the border station of Outpost 7. This small human colony housed only 50,000 civilians. The Dvakan commander intended to destroy it as an opening statement, a demonstration of what happened to species that challenged the established order. Emperor Crassus watched from his flagship, the Dominion of Stars. His 4 eyes gleamed with anticipation. Humans believe they can change the galaxy with one ship in pretty words, he snarled to his officers. Today we will teach them the old truth. Power belongs to those willing to use it without mercy. The fleet began its approach to Outpost 7. Sensors showed only the single dreadnought Prometheus standing in their path. 2,000 ships against one. The outcome seemed obvious. Then hyperspace rippled. 11 new contacts emerged from the void. The Varkan sensor officer's voice cracked with disbelief. My Emperor, there are more of them. 12 total dreadnoughts, each one identical to the first. Crassus felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear, cold and sharp, like a blade against his throat. But he was still an emperor, still a conqueror who had never retreated from battle. They are still outnumbered, he forced himself to say. All ships, attack formation. Destroy the human vessels and proceed to the colony. The coalition fleet surged forward, weapons powered to maximum, shields raised against the coming storm. 2,000 warships against 12. The mathematics still favored the coalition. Those mathematics were about to be proven wrong. Admiral Walker watched the approaching fleet with steady calm. All ships. This is Prometheus Actual. Execute defense pattern Omega. Weapons free. The 12 dreadnoughts moved with perfect coordination. They had trained for this moment for decades. Every captain knew their role. Every weapons officer understood their targets. The first salvo struck the Varkan forward line like the hammer of an angry god. Human weapons did not work like anything the galaxy had seen before. They bypassed shields entirely, phasing through protective barriers as if they did not exist. They struck armor and converted it to plasma. Ships that had survived 100 battles simply vanished in explosions of superheated metal. The Threx squadron tried to flank the dreadnought formation. The Zeus turned to meet them. A single focused beam swept across the enemy ships. 40 vessels died in as many seconds. Panic began to spread through the coalition forces. Communications channels filled with screaming and curses. Captains demanded orders. Officers reported damage that should have been impossible. Emperor Crassus watched his carefully assembled fleet crumble. 200 ships destroyed in the first minute of combat. 300 more crippled and drifting. The human dreadnoughts had not taken a single hit. How is this possible? He whispered. Our shields are the strongest in the galaxy. Our armor is impenetrable. His tactical officer was pale with terror. Their weapons do not interact with matter normally. They are using physics we do not understand. Our defenses are meaningless against them. On the bridge of the Prometheus, James watched the coalition fleet beginning to fragment. Some ships were already turning to flee. Others continued their attack runs, driven by pride or duty or simple inability to believe what was happening. Cease fire, he ordered. Open a channel to all enemy vessels. The weapons fell silent. The surviving coalition ships drifted in confusion, waiting for the killing blow that did not come. James spoke into the galaxy-wide channel. This battle is over. You have seen what our weapons can do. We could destroy every one of you in the next 10 minutes. We choose not to. Withdraw from this sector. Go home. Tell your emperors and generals what you've witnessed today. Humanity does not want war, but we will end any war that is brought to us. Emperor Crassus stared at the communication screen. His pride demanded that he continue fighting. His tactical displays showed that continuing meant complete annihilation. For the first time in his long reign, he gave an order to retreat. The coalition fleet scattered. Ships fled in every direction, desperate to escape the impossible human weapons. Within an hour, the sector was empty except for the 12 dreadnoughts and the wreckage of 500 coalition vessels. Commander Kim reviewed the casualty reports. No human ships damaged. No human casualties. Enemy losses exceed 40% of their total force. James nodded slowly. More than enough to make our point. Send rescue ships for survivors from the damaged vessels. We will treat their wounded and return them home. Sarah looked at him with surprise. Sir, those ships came here to destroy a civilian colony. Their commanders made that decision. The individual crew members followed orders as soldiers do. We will not punish them for the choices of their leaders. That is exactly the kind of cruelty we are trying to end. On distant worlds across the galaxy, billions of beings watched recordings of the battle. The warrior species saw their greatest fleets destroyed in moments and fell into shocked silence. The oppressed species saw their tormentors humiliated and felt something stirring in their hearts. Hope, a feeling many of them had never known. Ambassador Celine of the Eldori formally requested to speak with human representatives. 16 other species sent similar messages within the hour. The coalition that Admiral Walker had proposed was beginning to form, and in his throne room on Voraxis Prime, Emperor Crassus stared at the tactical recordings with empty eyes. His empire had seemed invincible for 600 years. Now he understood that it had survived only because humans had allowed it to survive. That power could be taken away at any moment. The galaxy was changing, the old order was dying, and humanity stood at the center of everything, finally revealed as the force they had always been. 5 years passed since the Battle of Outpost 7. The galaxy was barely recognizable. Station Genesis had expanded beyond anything its designers originally planned. 12 additional construction facilities now orbited nearby, producing supplies and technology for worlds that had never known such abundance. Medical ships bearing the human flag traveled to the most remote corners of settled space, bringing healing to species that had been abandoned by the old powers. Captain Elena Vasquez had been promoted to Commodore. Her small cargo ship Wanderer now led a fleet of humanitarian vessels. She stood on the observation deck of her new flagship, the Hope, watching as supply containers were transferred to a Kalan transport 5 years ago. The Kalan had been refugees dying in camps. Today they were rebuilding their homeworld with human assistance. Their population had grown by 3 million. Children who would have died were now attending schools and planning futures. A communication alert sounded. Elena activated the display and saw Ambassador Celine of the Eldori appearing on screen. Commodore Vasquez, Celine said with her characteristic gentle smile. The Coalition Council has completed its review of your supply distribution reports. Once again, your efficiency exceeds all expectations. Elena smiled in return. The Kalan helped design the distribution system. They understand their people's needs better than we ever could. We just provided the resources. Precisely the point the Council wished to make. Humanity continues to share credit rather than claim dominance. It is a strange approach that many species are still struggling to understand. Strange indeed. The Galactic Coalition now included 412 species. Every one of them had spent their existence under the shadow of the old warrior powers. They had been raided, taxed, enslaved, and ignored. Now they sat as equals at council tables and helped decide the galaxy's future. The old powers were struggling to adapt. The Varkan Empire had lost 3/4 of its territory as conquered worlds declared independence under coalition protection. Emperor Crassus had died 2 years after the battle, broken by shame and rage. His successors were negotiating treaties they once would have laughed at. The Threx Combine had fractured into a dozen smaller factions, each competing to prove they could work with the new order. The Moloch hegemony had made the cleverest adaptation. General Thrak had overthrown their previous leadership and declared his species willing to serve as protectors of the weak rather than their predators. Human diplomats were carefully nurturing this transformation. Admiral James Walker rarely appeared in public anymore. He had retired from active command after the first year, passing the fleet to younger officers who had grown up believing in the Coalition's principles. He spent his days on Earth, teaching at the academy where new generations of human leaders were being trained. Commander Sarah Kim, now Admiral Kim, commanded the Prometheus. She had inherited James's calm wisdom and quiet strength. Under her leadership, the Dreadnought fleet had never fired another shot in anger. Their presence alone was enough to discourage aggression. But not everyone had accepted the new galaxy. A message arrived at Coalition headquarters from deep space. It came from a region beyond the mapped territories, where sensors could not reach and ships rarely traveled. The message was brief and chilling. The insects believe they have changed the universe. They are wrong. We are coming. Intelligence analysts traced the signal to the outer void, a region of space that had been abandoned millions of years ago. Ancient records mentioned a species that had once ruled the entire galaxy before withdrawing into the darkness. The progenitors, the first ones, being so old that even their name had been nearly forgotten. Admiral Kim received the analysis in her quarters aboard the Prometheus. She read the report 3 times before responding. Summon the council and contact James Walker. We may need his wisdom again. James received a message at his home overlooking the Pacific Ocean. He was 70 years old now, his hair completely white, his body slowing with age, but his mind remained sharp, and his eyes still held that cold strategic clarity. I wondered when they would notice, he said quietly to himself. The Coalition Council met in emergency session. Representatives from 400 species debated in fearful tones about this new threat. Some demanded immediate preparation for war. Others counseled patience and diplomacy. James Walker appeared via holographic transmission. His presence silenced the chamber instantly. The progenitors withdrew from the galaxy 12 million years ago, he said calmly. They left because they grew bored with conquest. They found no challenge among the species of that era. Their message suggests they have been watching our development with renewed interest. Ambassador Celine leaned forward. How do you know so much about beings who were considered myths until today? James smiled slightly. Humans have spent 3 centuries studying everything. The progenitors left records scattered across the galaxy. Ancient ruins, encoded signals, fragments of technology. We found them. We studied them. We prepared. Murmurs rippled through the council. Once again, humanity had been planning for a threat no one else had recognized. Are we ready to face them? Asked a representative from the Kaelin people. No single species is ready, James replied, but 400 species working together, sharing technology and knowledge and hope. That is something the galaxy has never seen. That is something even the progenitors could not have predicted. He paused, letting his words sink into every mind in the chamber. The coalition was never just about protecting the weak from the strong. It was about building something new, a galactic civilization that could face any challenge through cooperation rather than domination. The progenitors ruled through power alone. We will face them with something greater. Admiral Kim spoke from the bridge of the Prometheus. All 12 dreadnoughts are prepared for deployment, but we have also completed work on Project Unity. 14 more ships of a new design, built with technology from across the coalition. Aldori sensors, Kaelin medical systems, human weapons and Threx armor. Every species contributed their greatest achievements. The council chamber fell into odd silence. The galaxy believed humanity was weak because we chose not to use our strength for conquest, James continued. The progenitors believe the same. They will discover the same truth that the Varkan discovered 5 years ago. Humanity does not fight for domination. We fight for something worth protecting. Captain Alina Vasquez watched the council session from her flagship. Around her, supply ships continued their work, delivering medicine and food and hope to worlds across the galaxy. She remembered standing on the Wanderer 5 years ago, watching the Prometheus appear from hyperspace. She remembered the fear and the wonder and the sudden realization that everything was about to change. Now, she understood that the change had only begun. The coalition was not just an alliance, it was an idea made real, a proof that the universe could be organized around something other than violence and domination. Whatever came from the outer void would face that idea. They would face 400 species standing together. They would face human dreadnoughts carrying weapons that could shatter stars. They would face a galaxy that had learned to hope. The stars had gone quiet 5 years ago because no one knew what to say after humanity revealed its strength. Now the stars were filled with a different kind of silence, the calm before a storm that would determine everything. But this time, the galaxy was not waiting in fear. It was preparing together, building together, standing together. Whatever came next, they would face it as one, and somewhere in the darkness of the outer void, ancient eyes watched the lights of the coalition with growing uncertainty. They had expected to find the same weak, divided galaxy they had abandoned long ago. Instead, they found something new, something they did not understand, something that was no longer afraid. The universe had changed. Humanity had helped change it, and the greatest test of that change was still to come.